This episode of the Carolina Sports Guy, we're diving in and look at the finale, Week 13, regular season, college football in the Carolinas. Before we get into today's video, folks, make sure you subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. Pound that like button, hit that bell notification to be notified of future videos like this. And hey, folks, leave me some comments. I sure do love the dialogue. Okay, folks, it's in the books. And we've got a couple of teams that definitely have been eliminated and their season's over. We got some schools that are definitely going bowl bound. We got some teams playing in the conference championship. So before we get into anything, I just kind of want to say that it's been a remarkable season. I'm going to get to the end of this video, and I'm going to go by probably record, and it can be questionable about which team is better. But I'm going to go from 10 to 1 and rank the schools in the Carolinas this season alone. Now, I kind of want to start out with the games that we had that were like Friday. Okay? Now, we had a couple, 2 or 3. Cincinnati playing at East Carolina. Now, I did say Cincinnati would win the game, and I was correct. But I had it a 28-24 game. Now, the beginning of the game, as I noticed, East Carolina fans were fired up. It was a good game to start out with. You know, Cincinnati turned the ball over on downs, missed a field goal. And believe it or not, I mean, East Carolina drives down the field, scores first, and the momentum's there. Unfortunately, Cincinnati does have too much firepower. Cincinnati wins this game 35-13. There was a chance a field goal East Carolina could have, brought the game a little closer, and it was blocked, and Cincinnati scored on the blocked field goal. A 35-13. Cincinnati, I believe, does deserve to be in that Final Four grouping. They've earned it. But East Carolina finished the season 7-5. I believe they're going to the Military Bowl in Annapolis, probably playing someone like UNC or University of Virginia. And it would be a very, very good season, since they haven't been to the bowl in about 7 years, if they could pick up a win against an ACC school. So, successful season, East Carolina overall. Mike Houston, the head coach, got them going in the right direction. Now, the next game we had, I had Coastal Carolina beating South Alabama in Mobile 28-7. Well, Coastal Carolina did win, but this game went into overtime, folks. Coastal Carolina had their hands full with South Alabama. Coastal Carolina does win 27-21. They finished 10-2, so yeah, they're going bowling. They got a very successful year. The Appalachian State game is the one that really kept them from winning the conference. But overall, very, very good year for Coastal Carolina. Now we're looking at some of these games that we had, looking at the Unc Nc State game. What an epic game. This game, at one point, I had NC State winning this game 31-20. And at one point in this game, a couple minutes to go, UNC kicks a field goal. It might have been 2.5 minutes to go. But UNC kicks a field goal to go up, 30-20. Kind of give them that double-digit lead, thinking the game's over. Well, East Carolina. NC State gets a very nice kick return. NC State scores a touchdown to make it 30-27, and you think, okay, there's like 40-some seconds left. This game's more or less over. Well, NC State gets the onside kick. I don't know what the Tar Heel players were thinking. They should have done a better job of trying to cover up, but NC State recovers it. They go down. I'm thinking, hey, State's going to get a field goal. This is going overtime. No, State goes for the jugular. They score on a touchdown pass. State wins this game 34-30. Carolina did have a chance at the end. They drove down, but they threw an interception in the end zone on the last play. So State finishes 9-3. Carolina finishes 6-6. The one big Carolina victory this year, they beat Wake Forest, handing their first loss 58-55. So Carolina will probably be in a bowl. NC State definitely is. But now NC State missed out on playing for the conference championship game in Charlotte because yesterday, or Saturday I should say, Wake Forest played at Boston College. And I had Wake Forest winning 38-28. Well, Wake Forest more than took care of business. They won the game 41-10. And Wake Forest goes to 10-2. You know, that 3-point loss to Carolina. I know they wish they had that game back. And then when they went down to Clemson and kind of got drugged by Clemson, kind of let them know that, Clemson's still pretty good in this conference, and Wake kind of, I wouldn't say ruined their season, but messed their top 10 finish up. Then we also had Appalachian State and Georgia Southern. Well, it was Georgia Southern and Appalachian State. And I had Appalachian State winning this game 27-17 to clinch the Sun Belt title. Now, Appalachian State did score to 27, but they only let Georgia Southern have 3. So it was a 27-3 win. Appalachian State finishes 10-2. You know, they had that one loss against Louisiana Conference foe. They were really drugged at Louisiana Lafayette. But the Miami game was a game they lost by 2. They had a chance to win. So they had a really, really good season. And Appalachian State 10-2, they're going to a bowl. Miami at Duke. Well, Duke really struggled this year. I'm not going to lie to you. Finishing 3-9, I knew they'd probably get beat by Miami. And I said 27-13 Miami. Well, Miami wins this game 47-10. So a totally bigger margin of victory for the University of Miami in that game. Next up, the other game we had left was Charlotte at Old Dominion. And I picked Charlotte. This is the one game I missed for the week. I picked Charlotte to win 28-21, even though it was in Old Dominion. I thought Charlotte could win the game, go 6-6, and get in a bowl. But Old Dominion throttled Charlotte 56-34. And Charlotte goes to 5-7, so they're not bowl eligible. And they started out pretty good. I think the one game that got away from them was the Illinois game. If they could have won that when they were close to the end, might have made a difference. And then finally last night capped off, or I say Saturday night, the game that was capped off was Clemson and South Carolina. I had Clemson winning 24-20. I thought South Carolina had improved. I thought Clemson's weaker than most years, although they played better as of late. While Clemson throttled South Carolina 30-0. And Clemson finishes the season at 9-3, and South Carolina goes 6-6. So they're both bowl eligible. Now, ranking these schools, Duke's number 10 coming in 3-9. You know, I know they beat Northwestern. You know, they won a couple more games, but Duke really, really struggled. I think another game they won was North Carolina A&T, which is FCS. But Duke has struggled this year, and their season's definitely over. So the fans at Duke can look forward to basketball. Charlotte finished 5-7. They had a couple big wins. They beat Duke. You know, this game against Old Dominion, Louisiana Tech coming down the stretch in Conference USA kind of killed them. The game in Illinois was a heartbreaker because they could have had a Big Ten win. But 5-7, they're going to be number 9. And that's the only other team that had a losing record of the Carolina schools. Now, number 8, a lot of people will say, well, why'd you have them number 8? Because they beat this team. They could have beat that team. But I got UNC. I got the Tar Heels number 8. They finished 6-6. And my big reason for putting them 8, even though they beat Wake Forest, is they had a bunch of games that they just were let down. They lost some games that they probably shouldn't have lost this year. They finished 6-6. So it was a disappointing season for Mike Brown and the Tar Heels. Number 7 is South Carolina. They finished 6-6. And a lot of people say, well, you got South Carolina out of East Carolina, and they beat East Carolina head-to-head, but it was on the last play of the game. But South Carolina did improve as the season went along, and they did beat Auburn. But they had some losses early on that were pretty monumental. But they're going to get better. But I've got them as the 7th best team. They finished 6-6. If you had to really play another week, they'd probably move up into state, and depending on who they play. Number 6, East Carolina, 7-5. You know, they got drilled by Cincinnati pretty good. They lost to Appalachian State the opening week with a pretty good score. And they got beat by Central Florida, who normally has a number. But they lost to Houston in overtime, folks. And it was at Houston, and Houston's a very good team. And the other game they lost was the South Carolina game, where South Carolina kicked the game-winning field goal at the end. So East Carolina could have easily been 9-3. And they're going bowling. I pick them number 6. They finished 7-5 for a winning season. Now, number 5 could be controversial, but I got Clemson. Clemson finishes 9-3. Could have put them higher, maybe. Probably do deserve to be higher. But this is a weaker Clemson team than normal. You know, they lost to NC State this year. They did beat Wake Forest, but they lost a couple other games. You know, they got hammered by Georgia early on. And, you know, people in the ACC had their number this year. So that's why I've got them number 5. Number 4 is NC State. State beat Clemson. That was a tiebreaker. You look at State's 3 losses. You know, they lost to Wake. Wake's got a good team. They lost to Mississippi State at Mississippi State, you know, I think by 10. And they ended up losing a close game at Miami. So State's had a good team. I got them number 4. And number 3, some people think maybe State should be 3 and the team number 3 should be number 4. I got Coastal Carolina. No, they lost a very close game to Appalachian State. And then they lost one more game. I believe it was Georgia Southern, but they lost one other game that was kind of a shock that threw them out of the Sun Belt race. But they finished 10-2, ranked in the top 25 most of the year. And number 2, I have Appalachian State. And the reason why I got them ahead of Coastal is they beat Coastal head-to-head. You know, they did have that one debacle where they went to Louisiana Lafayette and they were throttled. But other than that, they lost a 2-point game at Miami, a game they almost pulled out and won. They could easily be 11-1. But the number 1 team I have in the Carolinas is Wake Forest. I know they had the 3-point loss at UNC. It was a game they could have won. Their defense let them down. The other loss came at Clemson. That was at Clemson, folks. Clemson still has a lot of firepower. But Wake Forest, most of their games, folks, they scored like 38 or more points in every game, I think, except for the Clemson game. A lot of times scoring 70, 50-something, 40-something, high 30s, 38 or more. They had a hell of a successful year. They're playing in the ACC championship this week. They're going to end up playing, or in a couple of weeks, they end up playing Pitt. If they win that, go 11-2, they're going to get a pretty good echelon bowl. They could finish the season 12-2. Like I said, the Carolina game was a game that got away from them. They could easily be 13-1 if they take care of business here. And that's who I have as the number 1 ranked team in the Carolinas. So, folks, what do you think of today's video? Which team do you have as the best in the Carolinas? Which team do you have as the worst? It's definitely Duke, right? Well, leave me some comments. I love the dialogue. Pound that like button. Hit that bell notification. Be notified of future videos like these. And by all means, folks, subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. Help Uncle check you out. We'll see you next time on another episode of Carolina Sports Guy.